Huge MMA news. We got Chimaev Covington as the UFC 285 co-main event. Sterling Cejudo UFC 284 co-main event. And we have huge ranking updates. We have callouts from Beneil Dariush to Charles do Bronx Oliveira. All of this and more in today's video. But before we get into it, go down and smash that like button, subscribe, and put your predictions for the two fights I just mentioned down below in the comment section. With that being said, let's get into the news. Khamzat Chimaev and Colby Covington in the works for the co-main event for UFC 285 in Las Vegas, Nevada via Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour. He said the UFC was originally looking at making it the co-main event for UFC 286. It was going to be the card with Usman and Leon Edwards, but now it's looking to be the co-main event for 285, which is most likely to be headlined by Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic in Las Vegas. But this fight, I love it. I love it. 12-0 Khamzat Chimaev and 17-3 Colby Covington, with most of his losses to Kamaru Usman. It's going to be a banger of a fight. Put your predictions down below. Who wins, Chimaev or Covington? Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo is in the works. I kid you not. It is in the works for UFC 284 in Perth, Australia. That is absolutely insane. The man, the myth, the legend, Henry Cejudo, who is on a crazy 6-fight win streak, knocking out Wilson Hayes, Sergio Pettis by unanimous decision, Demetrius freaking Johnson, TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, and Dominic Cruz plans to come back at UFC 285 again in Australia as the co-main event. A former double champion versus the current champion Aljamain Sterling, who just beat Petr Yan twice, TJ Dillashaw and Corey Sandhagen, only losing a Brian Caraway split decision, Rafael Sunsao split decision, and Marlon Moraes in a very fluke KO. Aljamain's got 8 submission wins, 10 decisions, and 3 knockouts, whereas Henry Cejudo, the man, the myth, the legend, the smallest guy in all of the UFC, he's got 7 knockout wins, 1 submission, and 8 decisions. I assume if the fight gets made, it'll go to a decision, but who do y'all think wins, Henry Cejudo or Aljamain Sterling, now that it is in the works for UFC 284? Jon Jones is still preparing for UFC 282, and he is preparing to be the main event against Stipe Miocic. He said right here on Instagram, Jon Jones says he's prepping the return against Stipe Miocic on the final pay-per-view of 2022. He says, I'm preparing to fight Stipe December 10th in Las Vegas. Not really sure what's going to happen, what's going on with Stipe Miocic and the UFC, but I'm ready to compete. I'm going to control what I can and stay in shape for UFC 282. But the funny thing about this, guys, my most recent post on Instagram right here is an email that I got, and many of you guys probably got as well. Light heavyweight champion rematch headlines final UFC pay-per-view view of 2022. UFC ESPN, the main event has been made official. It says final UFC pay-per-view of the year, and they have the light heavyweight matchup, Yuri Prochazka, Glover Teixeira, headlining the card, which all but confirms that, no, Jon Jones, you are not going to be the main event for UFC 282. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but they're literally emailing people already that Yuri Prochazka, Glover Teixeira is going to be the main event. So no, for all Jon Jones fans, we're not getting that as the main event. Sugar Sean O'Malley is now the #1 bantamweight contender in the world. Moves up not 1, not 2, but 10 places in the UFC's bantamweight division after beating Petr Yan in one of the most controversial decisions in UFC history, beating Raulian Paiva Silva, Chris Moutinho, Thomas Almeida before that, and losing to Marlon Chito Vera. Now, the man is the #1 contender in the same realm as Charles Oliveira, Robert Whittaker, and Glover Teixeira in this bantamweight division. That is absolutely insane. Petr Yan goes down to #2 and goes tied with Merab Dvalishvili, who is also #2 in the bantamweight division. Marlon Vera moves up above TJ Dillashaw, who goes down 3 places in the bantamweight division. Sandhagen goes down 2 as well. Rafa, Dominic Cruz, Munoz, Yadong, and Ricky Simon all going down 1 spot as well, because Sean O'Malley went above all of those fighters. Crazy news there in the bantamweight division. Do you think Sean O'Malley deserves to be the #1 contender? Manon Fiorot is now the #1 contender in the UFC's flyweight division. In yesterday's MMA news video, I said she declined to fight Valentina Shevchenko and said instead she would rather fight another contender like Taila Santos or Alexa Grasso. Personally, I think it's going to be Alexa Grasso because that would be stylistically a very exciting matchup. But right now, she moves up from #6 in the UFC's flyweight division to #5. Caitlin Chukagian as well as Laura Murphy moved down 2 and 1 spots in the flyweight division. Who should Manon Fiorot fight next, if not Valentina Shevchenko, Taila Santos, or Alexa Grasso? Mohamed Mokaev enters the UFC's top 15 after going undefeated in the UFC, finishing Cody Durden in less than a minute, beating Charles Johnson by a 30-27 unanimous decision, and beating Malcolm Gordon, winning round 1, winning round 2, winning round 3, and then submitting him with 34 seconds left. After all that, he enters at #15, taking the place of Khabib's friend, Tagir Ulanbekov. Sumaderji also goes up 1 spot above Beneil. Islam Makhachev enters the top 15 of the pound-for-pound rankings of the UFC. He is now at #3, replacing Charles Duranx Oliveira. Volkanovski, Israel Adesanya on top of the rankings right there. But Islam, Kamaru Usman, and Leon Edwards are right behind Islam Makhachev right there. We got Ngannou going down 1 spot. We got Oliveira going down 4 spots. After losing to Islam Makhachev. Aljamain Sterling going down a spot because Islam Makhachev replaced him. Yuri Prochazka going above Davis and Figueiredo. A lot of people, I kind of assumed this was going to happen with how dominant Charles Oliveira got dominated by Islam Makhachev, but Dustin Poirier goes down 3 spots on the pound-for-pound ranking. So does John Jones and Max Holloway. And entering the top 15 is Robert the Reaper Whittaker. What do y'all think about the pound-for-pound ranking updates? Anthony Smith and Nikita Krylov could actually happen in 2023, and maybe by the end of 2022. You never know. They might just randomly add it on the UFC 281 to a random UFC fight night. I don't know when the fight's going to happen, but Nikita Krylov, after his win over Volkan Oezdemir in the first round knockout win over Alexander Gustafsson, the #8 ranked UFC light heavyweight in the world, has called out the #5 ranked light heavyweight in the world in Anthony Smith. And guess what? Anthony Smith did not decline, but he accepted Nikita Krylov's call out. He is currently 34 years old. Nikita is currently 30 years old. Anthony Smith coming off a loss to title contender, future title contender in Magomed Ankalaev, only losing to him, Alexander Rakic, and Glover Teixeira, while also beating Gustafsson, but beating Ryan Spann, Jimmy Crew, and Devin Clark as well. I think this fight will happen, but who do y'all think wins, Anthony Smith or Nikita Krylov? I got Anthony Smith. Beneil Dariush believes Alexander Volkanovski, who most likely is going to be fighting Islam Makhachev at UFC 284, is too small for the lightweight division, and I quote, well, I mean, obviously I don't want to discredit Alexander Volkanovski, but he might be too small for the lightweight division. Like I said, might be. I'm sure people said that to him about the 145-pound division, but I just think we have a big weight advantage on him. But that would be my only thing, and no one really tries to grapple at 145 pounds. I don't think I've seen really anyone try to take him down, so I think the facts that he'd be fighting a lot of grapplers, like a lot in my division, I didn't even realize it, like every single person is a grappler in the lightweight division. Everybody just loves to wrestle, so I think it's going to be different, him moving up to the lightweight division, and I think he's going to have some problems. He's calling Alexander Volkanovski too small. What do y'all believe? What do y'all think about that situation? Is he too small? And does he beat Islam Makhachev? Beneil Dariush deserves the UFC title shot, says Khabib Nurmagomedov and, well, Islam Makhachev's coach, Javier Hernandez, but he also says the fans want Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski, but he did say the number 4 contender, Beneil Dariush, who is beating Mateusz Gamrot inside of the UFC, Tony Ferguson inside of the UFC, and plenty of other guys, 3 top 15 guys in Drew Dober, Tony Ferguson, and Mateusz Gamrot, and plenty of guys that have been inside of the top 15. He believes Beneil deserves it, but he's not going to get it, as in fight with number 1 pound for pound Volkanovski and number 3 pound for pound Islam would make more sense for the fans. What do y'all think about that in the lightweight division? Alexander Volkanovski versus Islam Makhachev, likely to happen at UFC 284, Perth, Australia in 2023. And a man that's fighting this weekend, number 5 UFC featherweight contender, says he is rooting for Alexander Volkanovski to beat the man, the myth, the legend, Islam Makhachev at UFC 284, which is interesting because if he does beat Islam, that means he's going to have to defend both the featherweight and the lightweight belt, making it harder for Calvin Kattar to potentially get a title shot in the UFC's featherweight division. So I'm surprised that he's rooting for Alexander Volkanovski. Do you agree with Calvin? Are you also rooting for Alexander Volkanovski? And who do you think wins, Volkanovski or Islam Makhachev? Caio Borralho calls out Anthony Hernandez after his win at UFC 280, currently on a 5-fight win streak inside of UFC, including the Contender Series, beating Bellator title contender Aaron Jeffrey, Jesse Murray up a weight class, Caio Margadzhiev to take his O, Armin Petrosian, and Mahmoud Muradov, only losing to Jailton Almeida in a grappling match, and a guy way back in 2015, has 4 KOs, 3 submissions, and 6 decision wins, but after all of those wins is currently at number 23 in the middleweight division, is not really quite deserving of a title shot just yet, given that his last win was coming on, not a title shot, a top 15 shot just yet, given his last win was a decision. But he calls out Anthony Fluffy Hernandez for his next fight in the UFC, who is currently 3-0 in his last 3, beating Rodolfo Vieira inside the distance, Josh Friend by decision, and Marc-Andre Borralho by 3rd round submission, also beating Brendan Allen, who is currently number 17 on the middleweight rankings right there as well. Marcus Perez, he did lose to him, and he did lose to Kevin Holland there, but he's on a 3-fight win streak. He's beaten some high-level guys in this middleweight division. Let's do Hernandez Borralho. Winner gets a fight in the top 15 versus the loser of Nasruddin Imavov Kelvin Gastelum. That's what I think should happen next. But what do y'all think about this in the middleweight division? Joshua Weems and Christian Rodriguez in the bantamweight division on short notice. Ladies and gentlemen, we got another short notice fight for this card. Christian coming off a loss to Jonathan Pierce. Also, guess what? On short notice, but he's going to be lengthier than Joshua Weems, and he's going to not necessarily have the experience advantage, but he has fought the better competition, at least inside of the UFC, losing to Jonathan Pierce, but beating Junior Cortez on the Contender Series was a very solid win. Currently on Tapology, he is a 4-1 favorite, and I'd have to agree. Now, my prediction for this fight is very, very simple. I got Christian Rodriguez getting the KO TKO win in round number 2 or in round number 3. I do believe Weems will survive at least round number 1 and do a little bit better than he did against Fernie Garcia on the Contender Series, but I don't think he's going to be able to take down Christian Rodriguez. Christian showed very good wrestling and grappling up a weight class to fight Jonathan Pierce in the featherweight division, was still able to defend a lot of those takedowns, get some takedowns of his own, and outstrike Jonathan Pierce at moments in that fight. That's what I see happening here. I don't think Joshua Weems is going to be able to go out there and land the takedowns on Christian Rodriguez. Instead, I think this fight stays on the feet. Rodriguez defends the takedowns, and he just severely outstrikes Joshua Weems. Christian Rodriguez hits harder. He throws more volume, and not to mention that he has more power than Joshua Weems, and Joshua got knocked out pretty dang fast by Fernie Garcia 1 year ago. So I do believe Joshua Weems will go out there looking for the takedown in round number 1, get hit with some big shots early on, but come back in round number 2 and round number 3. And Christian Rodriguez will win round number 2 until he knocks him out right at the end of the round after a flurry of combinations. It's not going to be a straight up knockout where he's out cold, but it's going to be a flurry of combinations, maybe a knockdown and a little bit of ground and pound or something like that. Christian's just so far superior in the strike, and his volume is very, very good. His power is good. His kicking game needs a little bit of work, but it is still pretty solid in my opinion. And I do believe he's going to catch him with the right hook on the feet and land a little bit of ground and pound, get shots to the side of the head on Joshua Weems, and the ref will call a TKO in round number 2. UFC Fight Night, Rodriguez versus Lemos, bout order per ESPN. On the prelims, we got Derek Minner versus Shailan Nurdanbiek. We got Manon the Maverick, Shayna Young being rescheduled for that fight. Mario Batista versus Lopez. I'm forgetting Benito Lopez. We got Pauliana Viana versus Jin Yoon Frey. Ludwig Shalinyan versus Johnny Munoz Jr. Carlos Candelario, Jake Hadley, I believe it was Tamires Vidal, and Ramona Pascual. Those are going to be the fights on the prelims. Not the best fights on the prelims. A lot of grappling and wrestling heavy fights, but the main card is looking absolutely amazing. We got Jailton Almeida, future light heavyweight champion, taking on a veteran Maxime Grisham with more than 40 professional MMA fights. We got Grant Dawson and Mark Madsen, two guys, one of which undefeated, one has one loss in his MMA career. Winner gets a shot inside the top 15. We got top 15 flyweight fighter Tagir Ulanbekov taking on Nate Maness. Winner obviously is going to get a shot inside the top 15. We got Chase Sherman and Josh Parisian. I don't know why that's on the main card, but it is. Maron the Maverick, Shayna Young probably should have been there ahead of Sherman and Parisian, but I mean, Sherman Parisian is going to be a little bit more exciting. We got Magny Rodriguez in the co-main event, and we got Marina Rodriguez, Amanda Lemos in the main event. Put your predictions down below for that card. That is it for today's MMA news. If you want to see them, go down to the description. It'll show pretty much all the timestamps for every single thing that we did in today's video. But if you want to just pause the video and read them right here, you definitely can do so. A lot of MMA news in today's video. But if you want all the bets that I'm going to be making for this weekend, UFC Fight Night, Kattar versus Allen, make sure to go down in the description and click that top link in the description right below all of the timestamps. And if you want free money, literally $125 for free, check the second to top link down below in the description. Sign up using promo code BERTMMA and put $100 in. You get a free $125 sign up bonus when you sign up with BetUS. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, like the video. If you want to subscribe. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one.